Good evening and welcome to the Thursday, June 27th, 2024 meeting of the Lakeville Planning Board. We are meeting at the Lakeville Public Library at 4 Precinct Street tonight. We have LakeCAM recording the meeting. Is anyone else here recording? Hearing none. Our first agenda item is an A&R plan for 38 Lakeside Avenue. This had been continued from our previous meeting, and we did get the revised plans showing the items that had been requested. Those were submitted today, although we usually have a cutoff a week prior. These were minor.
Yes, we can hear you, but say, so if you want, if you slide the microphone closer to you, no?
I'll speak up. So these were minor revisions to the A&R plan, and the well and septic have been shown as requested. So if someone from the board would like to make a motion to approve the A&R plan.
I'll make a motion to approve the A&R plan for 38 Lakeside Avenue.
I have a motion.
Second.
And a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, agenda item number 2 is a public hearing. And actually, I'm going to be taking this out of order because the counsel for the applicant has asked to take number 4, which is the preliminary plan for 43 Main Street. They're all still regarding the same property, which is 43 Main Street. So
I don't mean to interrupt. He can't hear, we can't hear. Then kind of paper that we can follow as far as the planning board, the article that you're talking about? Because I don't know if anybody has the agenda.
Unfortunately, I don't think there's.
I can put the agenda. If you want to put the agenda. You want mine?
Hold on, I can give them this.
Any way to put it up on?
Did you? Okay, thank you. All right, so number 4, preliminary plan, 43 Main Street, upon the application of Lakeville owner LLC to recreate the existing 49.4 acre property site, representing a compilation of 7 parcels into 2 new parcels and 1 new roadway.
My thing is dead. My laptop's dead, so I need to plug it. Oh.
Good evening. For your record, my name is Robert Mather. I'm an attorney from Lakeville, and I represent the applicant, Lakeville owner, LLC. We have several people here tonight, so I'd just like to let you know who is here. We have 2 principals of Rhino Capital, John O'Leary and Sam Randall. Our lead engineer is VHB, and our lead civil engineer is Brittany Gessner. Brittany was involved in the special permit when we had it several years ago. This is actually the first time we appear before the board live. Everything else was Zoom at that point. We also have from VHB, Matt Keeley. Matt is the traffic engineer. Annie Gorman. Annie is the project manager. We also have Andrew Stebbins. Andrew is the lead architect from the architectural team, I guess known as TAT. And also Dave Feldman. Where's Dave? Dave is here. Dave is the Senior Vice President of Development of Wingate Living. So as Chairman mentioned, we're actually here for 3 things. Yes, I was going to ask to take it out of order, but that is correct. Obviously, we want to look at the subdivision plan first because that kind of sets the stage for what we're proposing. But we're also here for 2 site plan reviews. They're separate applications. One is for Wingate Residences, which is 120 units of assisted living and memory care and 70 units of independent living. And we're also here for site plan review on a separate application for the Fox Estates, which is going to be a 68-unit, 55 and over, age-qualified, for-sale cottage home development. Proceeding with the preliminary subdivision, I also just want to point out again, we're we're here for three things. They're separate. I think we need to handle them separately because as we proceed, we're going to present everything tonight, but as we proceed, we may proceed differently on the different applications. So it's probably wise, so when we do our first site plan review, to do everything on that, close that hearing and go to the next one. So at this point, I'm going to ask Brittany to present the preliminary subdivision plan. Brittany?
Good evening. My name is Brittany Gessner, civil engineer with BHB for the project. As was introduced by the attorney, we are here today to discuss a preliminary subdivision filing that was submitted with the town. Brief agenda for this portion of the project. I'll discuss the existing site, the proposed subdivision, and then I'll talk about the design of the right-of-way road that we're proposing, as well as the two parcels that we're proposing to create as part of the subdivision. So under existing conditions, the property is a 49-acre site. It has frontage along Main Street and Rhode Island Road. It is a compilation of a number of individual parcels. Unfortunately, the yellow is not showing up very well with this projection. What we are proposing is an approximately 400 linear foot road that extends off of Rhode Island Road and extends south into the site. And then off of that road, we are proposing the creation of two parcels within the 49-acre property. Under existing conditions, the site, as most of you are well aware, developed with the abandoned former Lakeville State Hospital that has been empty for more than 30 years. They are buildings that are not in good repair. They need some attention. They need to be taken down. There is also a landfill, an unpermitted unlined landfill on the site. As part of the project and as part of execution of the subdivision, the developer is proposing to remediate the entirety of the site to remove these buildings and remove the landfill. However, it is important to note that while you will be hearing from us on a number of individual projects, it is important to keep in mind that all of these individual projects are necessary to advance in order for any of them to advance. There really is not a condition where the applicant would proceed with this subdivision if any of the portions of the project do not proceed. Just given the cost to remediate what exists there today, it's really necessary to have each of the projects proceed. This figure is a bit better. So under existing conditions, the site has underlying zoning districts of business. In the, on the southern portion, you can see the dashed line that runs through the bottom third of the site, and then the northern 2/3 of the site are under the residential zoning district. The entirety of the site is covered by a mixed-use overlay district. Here you can see this 400 linear foot subdivision road that we're proposing, and then the creation of this lot 1 and the creation of this lot 2. So this is the proposed Fox Hill Road. The road has been designed in accordance with all of the Town of Lakeville subdivision standards as far as grading and width, and that has all been documented in the proposal that we submitted. We are proposing the construction of utilities within the roadway: water, sewer, gas, electric, and drainage. We will be constructing a stormwater basin which will accept stormwater from this roadway, treat it, recharge it, and then any overflow would be discharged to the abutting wetlands. The entirety of the 49-acre development is intended to be serviced by a private wastewater treatment plant that will be constructed, owned, and operated by the applicant or somebody on their behalf. The smaller parcel 1 that we're proposing is where the building and the infrastructure for the wastewater treatment plant will exist. And then there will be leach fields on the second parcel. So both of the lots that we're proposing to create are in compliance with the zoning bylaws. They meet minimum lot dimensions, including area, frontage, and we're not proposing any development with the subdivision, so there's no need to talk about setbacks or lot coverage. So this is lot 1 that we are proposing, approximately 1.8 acres. And then this is lot 2 that we're proposing, approximately 46 acres. We are showing that even with the existing buildings on the property, these lots would be in compliance with the existing zoning bylaws. And that concludes our formal presentation for this preliminary subdivision. I'm happy to answer any questions that you or the public may have.
Yeah, sure. Dan Wilga, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Couple quick questions regarding the proposed septic sewerage. How many thousands of gallons is that going to hold approximately?
75,000.
And is that for just this division?
That is
or-
for the entire, any development,
Okay,
something that we can discuss separately. So this entire master plan property, all 49 acres, is subject to state NEPA review
Yep.
because we are pursuing a couple of state permits, including the state permit for the wastewater treatment plant. So every piece of development that is being proposed on this property is accounted for in that NEPA review and is accounted for in the wastewater treatment plant design, as well as the review we have to do with Mass DOT.
great. The other question is with regard to remediation, specifically, not so much the buildings, because I know the buildings have to be done to some extent, but more so for the landfill site. My understanding is that some core samples were taken out of that site. Can you give us some insight as to, you know, what we're looking at just in terms of overall remediation and what might also play into that in terms of EPA review and so forth, groundwater, that kind of thing?
Yep, absolutely. So there has been significant analysis completed on that landfill, dating back to approximately 2005. As you guys may be aware, we are not the first applicant to try to do something with this property. And there was another applicant back in circa 2005 looking to do something here. They did significant testing in that landfill, and we were able to get all of those records. In general, it's a clean landfill. It's mostly rags and sheets and bedding. There's really no identified contamination, so to say. That said, there was a permit issued for the removal of that landfill back in circa 2005 that outlined the sequence for removal and outlined who had to be there observing it, all the testing, all the documentation, very detailed, rigorous process. We've had discussions with DEP and expect that that permit will be transferred, can be transferred over, and that we can remove the landfill in accordance with those regulations. So it will be a highly observed process. There will need to be people on site every day observing what's happening, conducting testing, reporting that to make sure that we don't find anything we're not expecting, and if we do, it is characterized and documented appropriately.
Great, thank you.
Yep.
I have a question regarding the remediation of all the existing buildings. It's my understanding there's a tremendous amount of asbestos inside these buildings. You have a specific plan, I assume a specific company would come in and remove all of that.
Correct. Yeah, it would be a company that is authorized in removing asbestos.
So there'd be no, as it is done, there'd be no way that any of these particles, if you will, could then filter into the rest of the town.
Correct. They'll have to create these enclosed spaces, and so that everything that they're doing is enclosed, and you have to have special protection and authorization just to get into the enclosed spaces. They clean it all out, and then that protection would come down after.
Okay, thank you.
Any more questions about the preliminary plan?
Well, you know, it may sound like a kind of an elemental question, but kind of what's the purpose of doing two separate lots like this?
Sure. It's twofold. One, we understand that there's lots of interest in modifying the local zoning in the interest of mitigating risk for the zoning changing during our design and application process. We certainly want to pursue a subdivision to freeze that zoning under Massachusetts law so that we didn't have the rules changed on us halfway through. It's just a risk mitigation factor. The second piece, there are some benefits to having the wastewater treatment plant on its own parcel. It can help with some of the financing and the operation as the project gets developed.
And my question, Kathy, the preliminary plan, was it distributed through the necessary departments?
Yes.
And any comments?
No.
No comments came back, so no one really had any opposition to this. It seems straightforward. Do you have any input, town council, regarding, should we just go ahead and approve it? Is there any reason to hold off on approving the preliminary plan at this point?
There's not, it's a preliminary plan, so they'll come back within 7 months with a definitive plan.
Okay.
There's no question.
All right, so if anybody would like to make a motion to approve the preliminary plan as presented?
I'll make a motion to approve the preliminary plan as.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, so going back to agenda item number 2, the public hearing, site plan review, 43 Main Street, upon the application for site plan review and approval submitted by John O'Leary for the proposed development of Wingate Residences. It will include 120 units of assisted living and memory care and 70 units of independent living with associated site improvements, parking area, landscape improvements, and stormwater infrastructure. And the notice of public hearing, legal notice, the Lakeville Planning Board pursuant to Town of Lakeville Code Bylaws, Chapter 270, Section 270-6.7 will hold a public hearing on Thursday, June 27, 2024 at 7 p.m. at the Lakeville Public Library, 4 Precinct Street. The purpose of the public hearing will be to receive information and public comment on the following site plan review application. 43 Main Street, M060-B007-L001. Do I have to read these all? Or can I
You
wait?
said 43 Main Street?
Yes.
You're fine.
Okay. Wingate Residences at Lakeville is proposed to be located on 9.76 acres with 708.3 feet of frontage. The applicant, John O'Leary LLC, seeks site plan review and approval for a proposed senior living campus at the site of the former state hospital. The property owner is Lakeville Owner LLC. The redevelopment will include 120 units of assisted living and memory care and 70 units of independent living with associated site improvements, parking area, landscape improvements, and stormwater infrastructure.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Again, we're going to call this phase 1 of the project, and this is for, as you mentioned, Wingate Residences. This presentation is going to focus exclusively on Wingate. And as I mentioned before, we'd like to just limit questions and comments just to this section. Obviously, there'll be more hearings going on after tonight. So as you'll see from our presentation, this is Wingate Residences is proposed as a by right use. The portion of the property where Wingate Residence is proposed is located in the business district, which is also in the mixed-use overlay district. The use of the property, as proposed, is allowed by right within the business district as quote from the bylaw, home for elderly residential care facility. So as such, this is site plan review for this by right use. Our presentation, you'll see, has been structured to address really 3 things. The performance standards that are set in your bylaw, section 6.7.6, and actually 2 things on this one, 3 on the next one, and the architectural standards as set forth in 6.7.7. So now, again, I'm going to turn it back to Brittany, because we're going to get, realize the presentation for the preliminary subdivision was brief. We're going to give you some pretty detailed information at this point. So, Brittany?
Good evening. For the record, Brittany Gessner with VHB, civil engineer for the project. This was working so well. 5 minutes, there we go. All right. Little bit of a lengthier agenda for this one. Again, I will touch on the subdivision and how the topic at hand falls into the subdivision that we just previously discussed. We will discuss existing site conditions. I will introduce a representative from Wingate to discuss the proposed site conditions and the expected phasing of the project. Then I'll take it back and we'll walk through zoning, site circulation, utilities, stormwater management, erosion sedimentation control, and then I'll hand it off to some of my colleagues to discuss traffic, architectural design, landscape design, and then give you a synopsis of where we stand on the project schedule today. So this may look familiar, but as part of separate application, we are proposing subdivision of the site to create the, I had a pointer last time, I don't know what I did this time, to create the Fox Hill Road that is identified as lot 0 on this property with lots 1 and 2. Now, what we're proposing for this project, we expect that the subdivision would proceed, and at the conclusion of the finalization of the subdivision, we would then prepare what's called an approval not required plan, an A&R, and take lot 2 and turn it into lot 2A and lot 2B. And you can see that separation almost exactly follows the zone line that cuts through the property. This application that we're discussing right now falls only on lot 2B, the southernmost portion. It's approximately 10 acres of the overall 49 acres. So we have assumed with this application the execution of first the subdivision and then a second A&R plan. We have included the draft A&R plan as an attachment in the submission, so you can see what we're proposing. If this application is approved, we would then finalize the A&R prior to proceeding. Let me just fix this. This is gonna be for this to me. Why that happened. We're gonna roll with it. We'll be okay. There we go. Okay. So zooming out and zooming back to existing conditions, again, the yellow line is unfortunately hard to see on this projection, but you can see that the 10 acres on the southernmost portion of the site is where this is occurring. It's really that first building that you can see when you drive past Main Street, that's the majority of this 10 acres that we're proposing. We'll have frontage exclusively off of Main Street only for this parcel. With that, I will hand it off to David Feldman so he can talk about the project holistically.
For the record, David Feldman, Senior Vice President of Development for Wingate Living. So what you see here is the assisted living and memory care building in 120,000 square feet. It's going to be made up of 94 mostly one-bedroom apartments and 26 studio apartments for memory care. It's important to understand what the difference is between assisted living and independent living. Assisted living is licensed by the Executive Office of Elder Affairs. There are certain regulations that we have to abide by as far as staffing and everything else. Independent living is not licensed by any state agency. In the 120,000 square feet, about 35% of that is dedicated towards amenity spaces. So you're looking at roughly about 40,000 square feet of amenity spaces. And that's made up of, you know, commercial kitchens, dining rooms, theater. We're actually building an auditorium on this project. Small auditorium, not like the Lang Center or anything. But something where we can have large-scale activities for all our residents, and the independent, and maybe even bring in the Council on Aging, allow them to use the space for large gatherings. There'll be a bistro, pub, fitness area, outdoor dining. So lots of space for our assisted living folks. Memory care is in a secured environment. It's all self-contained and have their own secure garden. The way we build our buildings is we don't build a lot of corridors, especially in memory care. All of our apartments open up to amenity spaces, so they don't have any dead ends. We spend a lot of time with the Mass Alzheimer's Association when we first started our program about 15 years ago. And we'd like to think we're on the forefront of our building designs for lighting and colors and everything else. We take a lot of pride in that. On the independent side, which will actually be a phase 2, 70,000 square feet. On the amenity side, it's about 25% of the gross for amenity space. The differences between assisted and independent. Assisted, get 3 meals a day. On the independent, it's 1 meal a day. We provide a continental breakfast every morning, and then the resident has a choice whether they want to have lunch or dinner as a 1 meal a day. In both programs, we have a robust activity calendar for all our residents. We firmly believe in socialization. I think that was a big outtake coming out of COVID during the pandemic, with a lot of our seniors being isolated and not being able to socialize with their loved ones or friends. So we take a lot of pride in our activity schedules. As far as the phasing is concerned, we're going to build the assisted living and memory care as the first phase. We expect construction to take about 16 months with a 12-month fill, and then determining, you know, we'll look at market conditions, and we'll probably go right into the construction of the independent living, right around the time we get to stabilization on the assisted living.
You said 16 months?
Yeah, 16 months on the construction, another 12 months on fill to reach stabilization. So, once we have the assisted living and memory care built, it's not, the independent living site's not going to be just dirt. It's going to be loomed over and hydro-seeded. So, and I'll talk more about the landscape when we get to that slide. I'm going to be filling in for our dynamic landscape architect, so you'll have to bear with me. So, anything else?
And so, I'm sorry if I could just, so 16 months for the assisted living memory care, 12 months for stabilization, and then to be determined when you would start on the independent?
Yeah, it depends on market conditions. We're building the assisted living first because assisted living is based on need. Independent living is really a choice. We think it's a wise choice for lots of reasons. You know, maintenance-free living, socialization. In both facilities, we provide transportation if you have to go to the doctor, or you want to go to the store, we provide transportation. So there's a lot of benefits to it, but it's all based on market conditions. If we see the market moving more favorably than it is today, we'll start earlier.
And now, if you see the market moving more towards that assisted living, like if you have such high demand, would you consider doing the whole thing, or no, this is set in stone, this is the plan, this is what you're sticking to?
So the interesting thing is, and we've done this in other communities, we can license apartments in the independent living as assisted living if the need arose. One of the benefits of that is we allow our residents to age in place, so they don't have to move out of that apartment. In the independent living, we don't provide any assistance for daily living, we do in the assisted living, so.
So you
that's it.
could potentially just build it and then
Mhm.
determine at a later date
Yeah,
exactly
absolutely.
what it.
Yes.
Do you have acreage adjacent to the assisted living memory care to stay, rather than take your apartments over here, you could put it on attach it on the building and make the whole assisted living memory care system section bigger without taking away from.
No, we're pretty tight on the site with the parking requirements and stormwater and everything else. So I think we pretty much maximized the amount of footprint that we can accommodate on the building.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
So I don't know if this is a question for Brittany or for yourself, but we did get a comment letter from the fire department. Have you seen that?
Yes, we have a bit more
Oh,
of a
okay.
presentation.
Okay.
And I could probably address
Okay,
that
great.
in
Yeah.
the next slide, actually.
All right.
I just don't know the specifics about assisted living. I've never run one. So as was mentioned previously, this project is proposed by right. We are proposing to be in compliance with all of the dimensional zoning criteria. This use is allowed by right in the underlying business district. We do meet the requirements for minimum lot size, frontage, all of our setbacks, building height, as well as maximum percentage of land coverage by structures. We also meet the minimum parking requirements on the property, including the requirements for accessible parking and EV charging and EV ready parking. We'll also be proposing some bike storage as well. So this plan illustrates the proposed circulation on the property. We are proposing 2 curb cuts off of Main Street, which would service the site. The easterly curb cut would be the primary curb cut for the property. Really, anybody except for loading or maintenance would be using this curb cut to access the property. So you would come in, and then you have the option to pull off of that driveway to the left here or up here to enter either of the 2 parking fields that are shaded in purple. We are proposing connectivity of this driveway to the future development portions of the project that will be reviewed by the town separately at a later date. There is also this drop-off turnaround, and there are some convenient parking spaces near each of the drop-offs. Both the assisted living and the independent living would have their own front door and drop-off space.
Sorry to interrupt. With regard to parking, so are the residents closest to the building and have assigned parking, at least one spot, or is it going to be just mixed in?
I don't know how you would manage your parking.
So obviously,
spaces.
the parking requirements for assisted living and memory care are understandably overstated.
Yeah.
Memory care residents don't have cars.
No.
Assisted
Okay.
living
Yeah.
residents may have a car, they don't drive.
Okay.
So it's really, we don't bother assigning parking in that instance. We'll have some assigned parkings for visitors. Staff will park away from the building.
Right.
And then all visitors will park closer to the building for easy access.
Okay.
And the same thing on the independent. Like I said earlier, one of the benefits is we provide transportation. We have a 12-passenger bus, we have a sedan that we're running residents to and from doctor's appointments, hospital appointments, whatever.
Very good. Thank you.
And related to that, any provisions for covered parking or future consideration of something like that?
No, not at this time.
If there's no other questions on parking, proceed?
Yep,
Okay.
sorry.
And then we are proposing a second curb cut on the westerly corner of the site. This is maybe in the same spot or very close to the existing curb cut on the property. This curb cut would service, there is a loading dock at the back of the site. It's not a full-service loading dock, it's at grade. It's mostly for food and linens and whatever else you get regularly delivered.
Food delivery, trash pickup.
Right. So that will be, it's sized for smaller sized trucks. This is not sized for a full-size tractor trailer truck. This would be used for loading. We do have the trash located back here that would be screened in. And then some of our infrastructure, generator, transformer, those types of things would be back here. As you can see, this driveway does not have connectivity to the rest of the site. So again, this really would be limited to loading and maintenance only. We have submitted as part of our application truck turning modeling, which demonstrates that a Lakeville fire truck can circulate its way all the way through the site. It can come through here, it can come in the back. As you've noted, Ms. Chairwoman, we did receive a comment letter from the fire department. We totally understand where they're coming from. We have some thoughts to address that. We expect that we will get additional comments during this process, so we expect to address the fire department's comment along with everything else at the same time, but we are fully confident that we can address their comment. I think that's it for circulation. So utilities. All of the utilities for this property will be serviced off of Main Street. We will be getting water off of the existing water main in Main Street. We'll be getting gas off of the existing gas main in Main Street. Same thing with electric and telecom. This facility will be serviced by the private wastewater treatment plant on site that I referenced previously as part of separate application. You can see in this inset here, this zooms out a bit on the property. So you can see this is the northern corner right here of the Wingate property. By gravity, the sewer from this property will flow all the way through this site, back to the wastewater treatment plant where it will be treated, and then it will be disposed of through the leach field as part of the master plan. All of the utilities are proposed to be underground. Today, electric comes in overhead, but we'll take that underground. We have hydrants located appropriately surrounding the building, and that was also included in the set that we submitted and was reviewed by the fire department. Stormwater management. So because this is a portion of a master planned property, and I mentioned as part of separate application that we are subject to comprehensive MEPA review for the site. The MEPA office requires for all master plan projects that you look at everything holistically. They really try to fight against what they refer to as project segmentation. They don't want to look at one piece of a project and look at another piece of a project. So as part of the state review, the stormwater management system for the entire 49-acre parcel was looked at as one comprehensive project. We have submitted a very detailed stormwater management report to you guys as part of this application. That stormwater management report looks at all 49 acres as one project, and it contemplates the 3 different developments as well as the subdivision road that we're proposing. We have noted in there's a table in that report that says, okay, here's the full master plan, but then here's each component that needs to be constructed with each separate project. So we've specifically noted, is there 8 basins we're proposing, I think, as part of the whole thing. 4 of those basins need to be constructed as part of this piece of the project. And that is included in the submission. That way it's clear, we've looked at everything holistically, but which parts need to be built as part of which project. So as part of this project, we are proposing several bioretention basins and several detention basins. There are 4, there's 3 at the front of the site, and then 1 at the rear of the site. The stormwater management system is designed in compliance with all 10 stormwater management standards. It will be thoroughly reviewed by Mass DEP as part of the MEPA review project, and we anticipate it will be thoroughly reviewed by the town as part of the application. Erosion sedimentation control. The project will be subject to coverage under the EPA NICDE's construction general permit. So we will be preparing what's called a SWIP. that will manage stormwater runoff throughout construction. That will be prepared in advance of construction, and it will ensure that there are perimeter erosion controls, internal erosion controls, protection against sedimentation off of the site, dust control. That will all be prepared and enforced throughout construction. With that, I will pass it off to my colleague, Matt Keeley.
Thanks, Brittany. Again, for the record, Matt Keeley, traffic engineer with VHB. I'd like to just give you a high-level overview of the traffic study and walk you through some of the steps we took to prepare it. Similar to the stormwater, since we're subject to MEPA review, this was one comprehensive study that takes into account all 3 developments on site. So it does conglomerate all the potential impacts for the project. So just in terms of existing conditions, that's sort of the first step in our study. We go through and we include traffic volumes. We do traffic counts at the study area intersections, which I'll show you in a second. Take a detailed crash history for those intersections, and then we do capacity analysis to see how those intersections are operating under existing conditions. As far as future conditions go, we project out 7 years using a historic growth rate based on volumes in the area or information from Mass DOT, things like that. We project out 7 years in accordance with MassDOT guidelines. So we look at a 2031 condition without the project in place, which is what we call our no build. We then do trip generation projections based on the ITE trip generation manual for each of the components of the project. We use US Census data to distribute that traffic, just to figure out where people are coming from and going to. Then we add on that trip generation to the no build to get our 2031 build conditions. And then we go back and we do capacity analysis for the no build and build conditions to identify any potential impacts between the differences between the no build and build conditions. Oh, click work too. So this is the study area for our project. Sorry that this is a little bit faded here, but this is Main Street. So our study area has 9 intersections. On Main Street, we start at the I-495 northbound ramps, and we go all the way down to Clear Pond Road here, Route 79, Bridge Street, and the site driveways along here, and then the site driveway on Route 79. With it being a residential project, our analysis periods are 7 to 9 in the morning and 4 to 6 in the evening to capture those commuter periods when the traffic is heaviest. I mentioned trip generation earlier. So as you would expect with this type of use, it's not a huge traffic generator. So in total, we would expect during the weekday AM peak hour, 36 new vehicle trips coming to and from the site, and during the PM peak hour, 47 vehicle trips. Overall, the study area, the study results, we show the existing conditions as a baseline. We look at the no build without the project, and then the build. Again, we do a capacity analysis, and that evaluates the level of service for each intersection. And level of service is a grading system, A through F, that gives you the average vehicle delays at those intersections. And the overall results of our analysis show that there's not going to be any significant impacts during the peak hours. So when we have...
One question.
Yep.
Traffic flow at the intersections, so that coming out of your property, part of that, the bans and you used to take people back, so that total number of vehicles includes your vehicles.
Correct. So in cases like this where we don't have any major impacts, as far as mitigation goes, we try and focus on transportation demand management, try and reduce the amount of traffic to and from the site. So some of the things were mentioned earlier, like the van services that will take people to their doctor's appointments, things like that. Those things are offered so that everybody doesn't have to drive themselves everywhere and make unnecessary trips, which drives the overall trip generation down. The details of the TDM program will be coordinated with the town of Lakeville and Mass DOT. Nothing's set in stone. It's usually just a discussion of what we can do on the site to reduce traffic. Some of those things may include. Oh, sorry.
No, I'm sorry. Just on the conceptual A&R plan, you called for possibly 2B to be connected to 2A. There was a road. So is there a road that will connect the two, so 2A, the residents from there could go there? Was that factored in that, could they cut through this way too, to come out?
Only, so if we look at the whole master plan, which I know we haven't presented tonight, there will be 2 portions of the project that will be connected internally. The third is separate the third, which is one we'll talk about later on today, is completely separate. There's no interconnectivity within the site.
Okay, so then would that other place, so there'll have to be another traffic study then, obviously, for the other one? That would add to that, so this is just for
Well,
2B.
this traffic study looks at all three developments. So
Oh, it does?
the
Yeah.
conclusions are based on full build-out of all three projects.
Okay,
Correct. So some of those TDM measures include making sure people know what alternate modes of transportation are available, like the van services, providing bike racks, as was mentioned earlier, the private car service to take people to where they need to go. And oftentimes, it's good to host an annual mobility management event, just so that people know, just give them exposure. Here's train schedules, here's where walking paths are, things like that, just so they know how to get around. And again, because this project is subject to NEPA review, we'll undergo a thorough review by Mass DOT. Typically, what they ask for every project is traffic monitoring, basically just as a check for our projections and our analysis results. And that typically happens once the site is occupied. 6 months after that, they do an annual monitoring program, traffic counts, checking against what we had in our study, and they do that for 5 years. So it's sort of just a checks and balances of what we put in our study, just to make sure that we weren't, off on our projections. And with that, I will hand it over to.
Thank you.
You can scroll more quick.
Good evening. Wrong way. Start. For the record, Andrew Stebbins, I'm associate at TAT. Very excited to be here. Very excited to be when David gave us the call. A long relationship with Wingate Living, and done over a half dozen buildings with Dave himself, and so we're very excited to be here. I'm going to touch upon how the application meets the architectural standards as outlined in on the site plan review. So in the earlier slides, you can see how the building sort of jogged and bent around, and that's the idea that so no facades are out of scale with the neighborhood. The building, and it's done with intentionality. The building edges really help create a variety of essentially what are outdoor rooms. The relationship of indoors and outdoors is very important to Wingate Living, and having that connection is very important. And you may have noticed also the independent and assisted were arranged to address each other and create an entry sequence. And though in plan it looks like they're all one building, really they're obviously two separate buildings, and they're connected by the auditorium, which you can see there on the left. And so it's not a simple mass all the way through. You can see there's the auditorium's like a story and a half. So this slide, excuse me, this slide is a view of the assisted and memory care main entrance. A little bit about the siding, which is one of the elements in the standards. The building exteriors are further broken down by the way of the variety of siding profiles and colors, and also help break it down with the variations in the roof plane. So we have a mix of horizontal clapboard siding, vertical siding, and panel siding, and all that done with the change in color and plane creates visual interest. The roof, the profile, the roof is modulated with a combination of traditional styles found commonly in New England. Here we have a mixture of hips and gable styles. And then the actual roof plane is actually sunken down from the top edge there. So we have an opportunity to screen any rooftop mechanical units that may be placed up there. And then for materials, materiality of the roofing, it's mostly asphalt shingle, and then select areas such as the porte cochere and some of the porch elements will be showing a metal roofing, which is sort of highlighting and giving hierarchy to the different areas. And then features and details, and I'll combine that with the windows and doors. The facades are articulated with a variety of traditional elements, such as porches, porch columns, or stone bases, horizontal running trim, projecting eaves, and windows are arranged in size to provide the user with a generous amount of natural light, especially the ground floor windows. I'm going to switch over to the, wrong way again. Switch over to the independent living main entrance. You can see it here. There's the auditorium on the right, as David had mentioned, the ability to potentially host outside events here. You have the large windows there. And then you notice that the buildings are not copies of each other. They want to be quite related, but they are different. They are different buildings, so they're related but different intentionally. And so you see, we incorporate some of the repeating elements, such as the columns and stone bases, and some of the window sort of profiles, but take a little bit of a different approach on how the facade is modulated and a slight difference in how the roof is modulated. And I think that is all. That's the 2 slides that I have.
So, curb appeal is very important to Wingate, okay? It starts, for us, it starts at the street. So when you see that main driveway coming in, it's just not gonna be light poles and a tree here, a tree there. It's gonna have more of a boulevard effect, similar to what you see here. Very specific on material, London plane trees, locust trees, stuff like that. Once you get into the site, we do a lot with color, and we like to phase our color throughout the seasons. We'll have early spring color going into summer color. I mean, it's a great year for hydrangeas this year. I don't know what happened. Maybe acid rain, who knows? But we'll have a lot of hydrangeas, so we'll just have colors all throughout the season. We like to use evergreens not in mass, but in strategic locations for shielding stuff like our generators and some of our parking lots, just to screen it from the street, so you're not looking at a wide parking lot. We kind of like to hide that, and we use evergreens to kind of soften the massing of the buildings. And then in the winter, we like a lot of texture and colors. We use a lot of red tick dogwoods. I don't know if everybody knows what red tick dogwood is, but when it loses its leaves in the fall, all the branches turn bright red. So you get a lot of interest in the winter. All our grass areas, for the most part, up against the building will be sod, so we get instant green. I mentioned earlier, once we're under construction, we finish phase 1. Phase 2 will be loomed and hydroseeded, and that'll go down into the bioretention basin. There'll be some evergreens screening the bioretention basin, not only from the street, but also from the building for our residents, and those areas will be maintained.
One more slide, we're almost there. So we thought it might be helpful just to help you understand where we are in the process of the project. We began coming up with this master plan scheme over the winter at the end of 2023, and we started early this year, and we've been working diligently through design ever since. As I mentioned, this project is subject to MIPA review. MIPA review is a lengthy process. We are subject to a full 3-step EIR, so environmental impact report process. That involves the filing of what's called an environmental notification form, and then that gets reviewed, that goes out for public comment, and then we file what's called a draft DEIR, environmental impact report, and then a final. So 3 different steps. We file them, that goes out for public review and comment, then we get a certificate back from MIPA on those. What we have done so far is we have filed the first step, the environmental notification form. That was filed in the spring. That already went through public review. The town was notified, town of Middleborough was notified, as well as many of your local organizations were notified. Public comment was received on the ENF, and MEPA did issue the certificate on the ENF. Now, we are currently preparing our draft EIR, the draft environmental impact report, and we expect to submit that back to MEPA later this summer. So that's only step 2. Then that'll go out for public review, we'll get comment, and then later on this fall, we would expect to go through step 3 and file the final environmental impact report. Again, that goes out for public comment. And then hopefully we're through with that 3-step process, and then we can begin our state permitting process, which would be the state permitting we need for this project is for the wastewater treatment plant, as well as the removal of the landfill, as well as our Mass DOT access permit, because Main Street is owned by the state. So that's where we are in the MEPA review process. I'd say we're about halfway. And then local review, here we are starting today. There's really 4 filings we have to make with the town. You are hearing 3 of those 4 today. The 4th will be filed later on in probably early fall. We would hope that we can conclude all of this permitting by the end of this year, and then quickly move to advance the project after that. So with that does conclude our formal presentation. Happy to answer any questions, have whatever discussion you would like.
Couple quick questions and comments. I'll start with the comment. Just from my perspective of looking at these residences, the architectural design, I appreciate the fact that the team has, put some of the local aesthetics into mind, especially when it comes to trying to keep it, looking like a really nice residential development, and not making it look like a Holiday Inn Express. So I do appreciate that. The couple quick questions with regard to traffic. So can we go over that again? I mean, I know that there's going to be a lot of discussion regarding that, but in terms of the entrances, how many proposed driveways are there for, is it 2 on 105?
Yeah.
Is that correct?
2.
So we're only dealing with this.
Yeah, so this application is proposing 2 curb
Just 2,
cuts.
okay.
That one's just really just service.
Okay.
Correct.
This one-
We are proposing 2, but really one of them would be used for the most part.
So, and we will have the peer review
Review, yeah.
traffic, and that's
Okay.
something that we should discuss as a board, is the
absolutely.
items that'll be going to peer
Right.
review. But.
In that traffic report that would be reviewed, does look at the entire master plan. So it will have more details of what the other pieces are, and it will talk about how this falls into that larger analysis.
You had mentioned that you were going to address the concern from the fire department, but I
Yes.
didn't hear anything.
Apologies. So we had filed, we demonstrated how a fire truck can circulate through these parking lots and service all portions of the building. That said, from where you can see the limits of pavement, there's a gap in service, and it's really on this northeast corner. They can't get there. We are still brainstorming how we intend to solve that. It will be in some manner of extending a roadway that only the fire trucks can use so that they have sufficient access. We would like to meet with them and brainstorm what they want to see before we formally submit the solution. But it would either be, extending access from this side or extending access from this side. Again, we want to meet with them, make sure that's what they want to see, and we will capture that in the next round of edits whenever that occurs.
I guess it's more of a comment than a question. I'm wondering how this looks before the independent living gets built, where your loading dock is kind of right out there, not quite front and center, but out towards the street and very visible. And,
Sure.
And what that side of the auditorium kind of looks like, kind of in the interim. Do you build it as kind of, yeah, we're gonna put something on here? I mean, I remember a college library that had this blank wall for quite a few years before they built their second phase.
We've actually done this before, where we built a phase and then connected another building to it. That access road is not going to change. So once we build the access road for the assisted living, it's going to be landscaped. It'll be tree lined, we'll screen that loading dock area so you won't see it from the street.
Yeah, I mean, it's one thing when the independent living
Yep.
gets built in front of it, that's a big
So what we'll
screen
do
too.
is that auditorium will be putting up there. It'll have siding on it, it'll look like a finished
It'll be
building.
compatible with all the other buildings you're putting up there, the residence building. Same kind of exterior finish?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yep, it's all gonna be fairly consistent, throughout the development. But I wouldn't worry about, how we're gonna, screen the auditorium and the loading dock. I'm very confident, because, again, curb appeal is very important to us. If you don't like it, we're certainly not gonna like it.
Yeah, well, and hopefully it is just a temporary sort of thing.
It
that
is temporary,
independent living-
and we planted good-sized shrubs temporarily, and then pulled them out and replanted them, and so there's a lot we can do with that.
We are proposing landscaping all up and down that driveway, and as you mentioned, that would go in day one.
And I know you said before about tractor trailers, so you're not anticipating any, like, you wouldn't get deliveries for like a tractor trailer trying to go down there?
No, the biggest truck that we get is usually from our food service.
Yeah, Gordon or
and
something like that.
Yeah, Gordon's, and they usually have a 12 or 14.
Okay, yeah, not like a 18-wheeler coming down there.
No, we don't want any.
It's not gonna fit.
Yeah.
Will you
Yeah, I
have
mean,
signage?
I know the truck drivers hate it, but
Yeah, right.
from an aesthetic standpoint, any idea about, doing a little bit of a wandering driveway there?
I was
I mean, rather
thinking
than
about it
just
as we were standing here, and I think we might explore it, because if we just put a little bow on this, it's gonna, a little bend, it will, if you look down, you'll see the trees and you won't see that. I think that would be a nice change. I agree.
Regarding the Gordon's deliveries, they'll be done during the day. And any lighting or backup beepers and all that kind of, that will be shielded from the abutters so that they're not hearing the trucks coming and going.
Yeah, all our deliveries are usually done by noontime. Trash is picked up 8 a.m. between 8 and 10. Our food deliveries are usually right at 8 a.m. And then you have some miscellaneous deliveries, UPS and stuff.
And any of the noise they generate will be contained within the whole facility of your acreage, rather than, my concern is that some of the abutters will be unhappy with hearing the trucks, and the trash trucks come and all that stuff. I think we need to be cognizant of that. We've been through this before, when it was, the distribution center, so obviously that's a much bigger issue than where you are, but still, I think, just bear that in mind.
And I think it's important to note that this property is entirely in the business district. So any of the direct abutters it's the bank, it's a commercial use. The residential abutters actually don't start until you're out of the view of the screen.
Right.
Yeah, if you have some questions, if you can come up
With the
to,
trucks and the stuff.
well, please come up to the microphone, state your name for the record.
I don't want my name in the paper. So I'm just curious, I live in Pascal Circle, which is the 55 and over community on 79. My name's Richard Medor. And I'm just curious,
when the trucks are coming, like you said, for the loading dock, are they coming on 79 or Rhode Island Road, or are they coming in from 105?
105.
You know, the same thing with the development that they're doing the second part, is that residential? That's the driveway that's gonna be coming onto 79 off
Yeah,
Rhode
we'll
Island
be talking
Road?
about it separately as part of a separate
Okay,
application.
so that was my question.
Stay tuned.
All right, thank you. I'm just curious if, like, they're coming off 105. Okay.
I just have a question about the internal parking, and I think you had mentioned that there's one parking.
We know you, Noel.
I'm
but-
sorry, I'm sorry. I'm Noel Verlo, I live in Lakeville on Reservoir Ave. For the assisted living, I think I heard one parking spot per unit, is that right? And I know you've done this before with Wingate, right?
It's 1 per 2 beds for the assisted living, and then it's 1 per unit for the independent living.
Okay, I just want to give you some perspective, having had to visit relatives in this kind of setting. There will be situations where you'll have the resident who lives there, and then you'll have the caregiver who will come during the day to do ABC, whatever. So that person will have an automobile. And then you'll also have a family member who wants to be there at the same time that the caregiver is there, so they can go over what they want done with the family member. And it creates a situation, I've seen this many times, where there's one parking spot and there are 2 people who need to have a parking spot because they need to be there at the same time to review. I mean, not necessarily every day, but if you could have some kind of adjunct parking for that purpose, so that if a caregiver and a relative needed to be there at the same time, which only makes sense, there was some overflow area for there to be additional parking, because it can get very testy.
So, Noel, so I will say, like, what you just mentioned, the good thing is, since it's phased and they're starting with that assisted memory care,
Okay.
perhaps when they come back, or, you know, in the future, when they're looking at what they're gonna do, they can assess the parking at that point. Perhaps that's something we
Right.
could put in conditionally, and to just ensure that the parking,
I
because
really
assuming that they won't be using all those spaces, that could potentially be the overflow, something like that.
Right.
Sure, and I would just say we are proposing that we are meeting the local zoning requirement for parking, and I do know that Wingate operates, I don't know the number, but I'm sure it's a lot of these facilities, and he feels very comfortable with the parking that we're proposing.
Yeah, so there's 26 memory care units, so there's 13 spots allocated under that for memory care. There's your overflow parking right there.
So
Because the memory care,
if it's understood, as long as there's not a scramble for relatives and caregivers.
no,
Thank
and
you.
then the caregivers will be our employees. You'll get, you'll get the extra caregivers when we go independent.
I'm just saying, you may not be busing in the caregivers. It may be someone from the community or a relative.
Understood.
Anybody else?
All right, well, so, I guess the next step would be peer review. Determining the disciplines that we would like to see peer review. So my list is stormwater, traffic, noise, potentially. I don't know if it's necessary, because we are talking business in a business zone. So I would say stormwater, traffic, and lighting, just because I know, I don't want to get too far into it, but the lighting plan for the 55 plus, and knowing we're going to do peer review for the whole development as a whole, have the lighting included. Is there anything else that anyone else would want to have included in that peer review?
Madam Chair, I think you want to do general civil.
Yeah.
Civil review to make sure that turning radiuses, all that kind of stuff. It's,
Okay. And then, just a question from, this maybe through the MIPA. I believe there was an environmental scientist previously was going to be on site. Is that going to, that'll all be the same again? For the
Are you talking about
the
removal of
remediation?
landfill?
Yes.
Yes, there will be an LSP, a licensed site professional. There are very few LSPs in the state, and when you get that licensure, you're actually acting on behalf of the state. So there will be an LSP engaged throughout the removal of landfill.
And during this process, when you start, after the remediation's done and everything, and start to raise the buildings and get the site prep done, from start to finish, how long do we think that's going to take approximately?
John O'Leary with Ryan Capital for the record. We estimate somewhere between 6 and 8 months for complete demolition of the property.
And for site prep, right? So,
We would lump that into our construction process.
okay.
So site readiness, which would just get it to dirt, take somewhere in the range of 6 to 8 months.
Okay.
Subsequently, as David mentioned, somewhere in the range of 16 months thereafter. Again, these are all estimates, so please don't take them as fact. But these are just our best guess, given our current information.
That includes the remediation of the buildings with the asbestos inside?
That's correct.
All that stuff?
So I know we've used environmental partners in the past. I feel comfortable, since they're familiar with the site. Maybe they don't need to visit the site as many times. Kathy, have you pursued anything with environmental partners yet?
Yes.
For the peer review? And what items did you ask them to cover?
Just a general review, staff, and the traffic.
General and traffic. Okay, so does the general include the stormwater?
Usually, but I can follow up.
Okay, so just make sure the stormwater and the lighting.
General civil, I think that would cover.
Civil,
Yeah.
Covered.
And with the traffic, they'd check the sight lines for that. All right, so, Mr. Mather, did you have something else to add?
No, it just, my first question was going to be, do we have the peer reviewer in place? With environmental partners, we certainly have no problem with that. I do know that when we did our design, we took into account what environmental partners suggested the last time they reviewed it. So we were hoping that you'd continue with them. So yeah, at this point, I think we could close this hearing, send it out for peer review, and begin the peer review process. John, how much time would you think we would?
We're available as early as you guys would like us, or when you would next like us. We've presented a substantial amount of information here this evening that we feel is comprehensive to the project. If coming back in 2 weeks to touch on anything additionally is needed or required, we're happy to do so. It's our opinion that it would probably make sense to come back once peer review comments have been prepared, presented.
Yeah.
We've had some time to digest, potentially make some changes, or at least discuss some of those changes, and then prepare a resubmission. But obviously defer to the board's preference. We're available to bring back our landscape architect to give a review on the landscaping. But if David's presentation was sufficient, we're right. So.
I mean, I don't see the need for a meeting prior to when the peer review is done, so potentially a month out.
Yeah, for the purposes, we'll continue to, I want to say, July
25th.
Thank you, July 25th.
So July 25th. And Amy, we don't want to close the hearing though, we just want to continue.
I think you just misspoke.
Okay.
You may continue.
Well, close the public input portion and to
No, there could be more public input after the peer review.
continue.
Yeah, so we'll continue.
And then you'll also extend the 21 days.
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay, so, motion to continue?
Yeah, I'll make a motion to continue the Wingate, 43 Main Street, Wingate, send off for peer review.
Second?
Second, yeah.
Continue to ensure.
25th, July 25th.
July 7th, yeah.
And could you specify the location?
43 Main Street.
Oh, no, for the public
Wingate.
hearing.
Oh,
I don't think it's necessary to hold it in the library. It seems we could potentially do it at the police station.
Looks like it.
Yeah. So, police station, July 25th, 7 PM.
7 PM. The police, all right. Make a motion to continue 43 Main Street, Wingate, is it Wingate Estates? Wingate Residency, until July 25th, incident for peer review at the police station.
Second?
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right. Where's my agenda? Agenda item number 3 is a public hearing, site plan review, 43 Main Street, upon the application for site plan review and approval submitted by John O'Leary LLC for the proposed development of the Fox Estates 55-plus age-qualified cottage home development. It will include 68 units across 26 cottages, 10 duplex, 16 triplex, a plus or minus 5,000 square foot clubhouse, and a plus or minus 2,000 square foot wastewater treatment plant, which will service the entire master planned redevelopment of the former state hospital site. Also proposed is a common amenity space, associated site improvements, new roadway, parking area, landscape improvements, and stormwater infrastructure. And the public hearing legal notice for 43 Main Street. The Fox Estates will be located on 30.6 acres with 537 foot total frontage, 114 feet on Rhode Island Road, and 423 feet along proposed subdivision road, Fox Hill Road. The applicant, John O'Leary, seeks site plan review and approval for a proposed 55-plus age-qualified cottage home development. The property owner is Lakeville Owner LLC. The proposed redevelopment includes 68 total units across 26 cottages, 10 duplexes, 6 triplexes, a plus or minus 5,000 square foot clubhouse, and a plus or minus 2,000 square foot wastewater treatment plant, which will service the entire master planned redevelopment of the former state hospital property. Also proposed is a community amenity space, associated site improvements, new roadway, parking areas, landscape improvements, and stormwater infrastructure.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Again, for your record, my name is Robert Mather, represent the applicant for this project. This will be phase 2 of the project, the Fox Estates. So this presentation will be focused exclusively on the Fox Estates. As you'll see during our presentation, what we are requesting is also a by right use. The portion of the property where the Fox Estates is proposed is located in the mixed-use overlay district. Use of the property is allowed by right within the mixed-use overlay district as quoted in your bylaw, age-qualified housing. As such, this application is for site plan review for this project. Once again, our presentation has been structured to address 3 things: the performance standards of the zoning bylaw, the architectural standards of the bylaw, and also with the mixed use, there are some general regulations in the mixed use. Before we get going, I just want to make an important note, because I know it was the subject for you previously. We are well aware that the bylaw provides that each dwelling unit must contain at the commencement of occupancy at least one occupant who is at least 55 years of age. We want you to know the developer is committed to deed restrictions on the property for the age restriction. Back to Brittany.
Thank you.
Good evening. For the record, my name is Brittany Gessner, civil engineer with VHB for the project on behalf of the applicant, Lakeville Owner LLC. Agenda for this portion of the project will closely mimic the agenda for a prior hearing you heard recently. We will talk about subdivision, I'll talk about existing site conditions, proposed site conditions, zoning, and how this project complies with your zoning bylaw. We'll discuss the amenity space we're proposing, circulation and site access and parking, utilities, stormwater management, erosion sedimentation control during construction, and then I will pass it off to my colleagues, and they will discuss traffic, architectural design, landscape design, and then we will briefly discuss project schedule. All right. So several hearings ago, we discussed a proposed subdivision on this 49-acre property, and we keep growing in number of steps. So if we start on the left is the original subdivision we are proposing with Fox Hill Road labeled as 0, creating 2 parcels that have frontage off of Fox Hill Road. We are then proposing, after the execution of the subdivision, 1 A&R that would create lots 2A and 2B. We are, subsequent to that first A&R, we would then propose a second A&R, which would split lot 2A into lot 2A-1 and lot 2A-2. The subject of this hearing that we're discussing right now includes development on parcel number 1 and development on parcel 2A-1. We have confirmed that if the development on parcel 2A-1 would be fully compliant with your zoning regulations, whether it includes the 2A-2 or doesn't include the 2A-2. We're just planning for if we were to do the third component of the project, which will be heard at a later date, the subject of this hearing would be fully compliant with that future A&R.
How do you A&R 2A-2, where's the frontage?
The frontage is off of the dog leg that extends down to Main Street. And that dog leg has frontage along Main Street. The little sliver of land that extends to the southeast.
The additional
Still
curb
don't see
cut?
it for 2A2, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm just gonna come up to the
Yeah,
point.
sorry.
No worries. Right here, so this is Main Street.
Yeah.
And this is part of 2A-2, and this is frontage along Main Street.
Okay, then where's the frontage for 2A1? Is that Fox?
That's Fox Hill
Okay, got
Road.
it. Okay, thank you.
Okay. So again, as I continue this presentation, we'll really be focusing on proposed development on lots 1 and lots 2A-1. Okay. Under existing conditions, the entirety of the property, it's a 49-acre property that currently houses the former Lakeville State Hospital that has been abandoned for approximately 30 years. There are a number of buildings across the site that are in varying levels of deterioration, including asbestos. They do need to be remediated before they are demoed. There's also an existing unpermitted, unlined landfill that will need to be fully removed as part of the project. In order to proceed with the project, we are hopeful that all components that are proposed on this 50-acre property would be approved, and then we would proceed with each step in the project, including remediation of the site, removal of the abandoned buildings and the landfill. All right, so here is the site plan for the 2 parcels that are subject of this hearing. We are proposing primary and only access to this portion of the project from Rhode Island Road at the northerly portion of the site. That is where Fox Hill Road connects to, it gets access off Rhode Island Road. Yes?
This says that only one exit needs to be made to accommodate easily the amount of traffic that these homes would generate.
Yes, so as part of the traffic study, the comprehensive master plan traffic study that we've submitted, it looks at all 3 developments. So the 2 that you've heard tonight, as well as a third that is not being heard tonight. We have looked at each of the curb cuts that are serving those developments and confirmed that the existing roadway infrastructure can handle the proposed traffic.
Okay.
So this portion of the project will be accessed exclusively off of Rhode Island Road and Fox Hill Road. We are not proposing any vehicular connectivity between this portion of the project and any other portions of the master planned project. The intersection between Fox Hill Road and Rhode Island Road would be stop controlled, and then you would come into the site. As you're driving south into the site, there will be an amenity space that I'll talk about in a moment, a public amenity space, and then there will be the wastewater treatment plant parcel on the right-hand side, and then you will enter this three-way intersection, and we have created a loop road so that you can go through the entire site and then leave. The project includes duplexes, triplexes, a total of 68 units situated on both sides of the site. And then there is a clubhouse which is located right in the center of that loop.
That's where they would get their mail as well?
Exactly.
Are those trails?
They are, yes. They're highlighted on a future slide. Zoning. So as we've discussed, this use is allowed by right, and we are proposing a development that is fully compliant with all of these zoning dimensional standards. What you can see in this table is an analysis of the zoning dimensional standards. The leftmost column is required for lot size, frontage, setbacks, building heights, and maximum percentage of land covered by structures. The second column is parcel 1. Parcel 1 is where the wastewater treatment plant would be located. And then the last two columns, we have parcel 2A, if we were to not do that second subdivision, and then parcel 2A-1 to demonstrate that this project would be fully compliant with the dimensional regulations with or without that second A&R. Zoning requires 2 parking spaces per unit. We are providing that, and we are fully compliant with the parking requirements. The parking will be provided 1 space in a garage, and then the second space will be in a private driveway for each of the units. There are some additional ancillary parking lots throughout, which I'll point out in a moment, some at the wastewater treatment plant and some at the public amenity spaces, and some at the clubhouse. So as part of this portion of the project, we are proposing a number of amenity spaces. 2 of them we propose would be open to the public, and then the other 3 would be private exclusively for the residents at this facility. Number 1, which is numbered the northernmost dot, just at the end of Fox Hill Road, that would be a public dog park. As you may be aware, the applicant has volunteered to host multiple community meetings prior to this public hearing. There was 2 where we invited the public to come and talk about the project. We wanted to hear what the public was interested in. I've got to say, we heard more than anything else was dog parks. I've got dogs, I get it. So people were very interested in dog parks, and we wanted to make sure we captured that. So right at the end of Fox Hill Road will be a dog park that would be open to the public, and there's some parking next to that to allow for the use of that. The second thing, and probably the second comment that we heard at those public hearings, was a walking trail. So we are proposing, and again, it's a little tough to see on this projection, the number 2 is the dot, the most farthest to the right, but we are proposing a nature-inspired walking trail which connects from Rhode Island Road through adjacent to Fox Hill Road, and then it follows that easterly portion of the development all the way around the wetlands, and it comes all the way to the southern part of the screen and will connect back to Main Street. So that it meanders through the woods. We expect it to feel like a nature trail walk when you're using that. Again, that would be open to the public and will connect to 2 public right-of-ways. The 3 remaining amenity spaces are intended to be for use of the residents that live here. We are proposing a cottage walking trail. So that is a walking trail. It follows, that's labeled by the 3, that's the leftmost on this site. It would follow the back of the cottages and loops the internal portion of the property. Item number 4 is the cottage clubhouse. We expect there would be some function space that the residents could use there. And then number 5, we are proposing a pergola. So that's kind of in the center of the screen. The private walking trail does go right through that large green space, and there'll be a nice little pergola, little overlook where you could spend some time outdoors in the middle of that green space. Site circulation, access, and parking. I did touch on this briefly, excuse me, getting to be a late night. There is only one point of access off Rhode Island Road. Again, no interconnectivity between this portion and any other portion of the site. We have demonstrated in our submission a model of the Lakeville fire truck circulating this whole site. They can come in and make that whole circle and then leave. Truck access, we anticipate, would be limited exclusively to the wastewater treatment plant. That will require regular maintenance, so that the trucks will just come in, go to the wastewater treatment plant and then leave. And then vehicular parking throughout, again, dedicated spots for each of the cottages, and then there is parking for the public dog park at the wastewater treatment plant and at the clubhouse. Yes.
Very quickly, with regards to parking.
Yes.
Street parking availability? Okay.
Nope.
And with regard to circulation around the perimeter of the property in that circle, will there be a sidewalk going around that entire development?
Yes,
Okay.
so I touched on the 2 walking trails.
Yeah.
There will be a paved sidewalk that follows one side of the full roadway and connects back out through Fox Hill Road and up to Rhode Island Road.
Okay.
That sidewalk will be designed in accordance with all accessibility requirements, be under 5%, and it will provide accessible pedestrian access from the public right-of-way to each cottage.
Perfect, thank you.
Utilities. We expect that all utilities for this portion of the project will be serviced off Rhode Island Road. So that includes water, electric, telecom. And then, again, this portion of the project will be, well, the entire project will be serviced by the wastewater treatment plant. The building and all the infrastructure for the wastewater treatment plant is located on that parcel 1 at the northern part of the site. And then the underground leach field, which will discharge all of the effluent from the wastewater treatment plant, is actually located in the green space that's in the center of the loop. So it's a nice way to take infrastructure that nobody really wants to think about and create an open space amenity with that. We have located hydrants throughout the site and documented that they are in sufficient proximity to each of the buildings and included that analysis in the submission for review by the fire department. Stormwater management. So as we've mentioned several times, this project is one component of a master plan development. This master plan development is subject to state MEPA review. The MEPA office requires that we look at all components of any master plan holistically to avoid project segmentation. Accordingly, we have prepared a comprehensive stormwater management design that is analyzed for the entire 49 acres. Demonstrate how that stormwater management system meets all of the 10 stormwater standards. And then and that was included in the stormwater report we submitted as part of the application. Also in that report is a table which identifies which components of that stormwater management system are required for this portion of the master plan to function. And that does include the development of 2 infiltration basins. It's a little tough to see, but right at the northeast corner of the 3-way intersection, that is one of the infiltration basins. And then the second one is actually just south of the clubhouse in that green space. Both of those will be infiltration basins. The one on the south is actually serviced by country drainage, so we won't have any catch basins before it. It's a nice natural stormwater will flow off of the road through some forebays, get some pre-treatment, and then into the infiltration basin. And then the infiltration basin at the north, that one unfortunately is captured with catch basins and then a forebay that provides the pre-treatment. I think that's all I've got about stormwater. Again, the stormwater management system has been designed in accordance with stormwater standards, and we look forward to a comprehensive review by DEP and your peer reviewer on that. During construction, the project will be subject to coverage under EPA NIPD's construction general permit. This will require the creation of what we call a SWIP, a stormwater pollution prevention plan, and that will dictate to the contractor everything that they need to do to reduce the risk for erosion, sedimentation, and dust pollution. So it talks about perimeter erosion controls, internal erosion controls, dewatering practices. It mandates that any material that's not touched for more than 14 days needs to be stabilized. It talks about how you should have stockpiles and protects them, and it really does everything we can to mitigate the impacts of construction on erosion during that time. And with that, I will pass it off to my colleague, Matt Keeley.
Thanks, Brittany. Again, for the record, my name is Matt Keeley, traffic engineer with VHB. Spoiler alert, you might know how this ends, but just want to make sure we cover everything for the record. As Brittany mentioned earlier, this is subject to MEPA review, so we prepared one comprehensive traffic study that includes all the proposed development on site. And I just want to walk you through the steps that we took to prepare that study. So we start with our existing conditions, which includes collecting traffic counts at all of our study area intersections, which I'll show in a second. At each of those intersections, we take a detailed crash history. We do capacity analysis to evaluate how well those intersections are operating under existing conditions. Moving forward to future conditions, as part of the MassDOT guidelines, we project out 7 years into the future, and we look at the project. We look at volumes with and without the proposed project. So we project out 7 years to do a 2031 condition without the project, which we call our no build. We do trip generation projections based on the ITE trip generation manual. We use US Census data to figure out the trip distribution, where those people are coming from and going to. And then we add on those trip generation projections to the no build, and that gives us our 2031 build conditions. Again, we do capacity analysis of the no build and build conditions, compare the two so we can see if there are any impacts associated with the project. Uh-oh. It didn't work. So again, the study area for the project is primarily along Main Street, starting up at the I-495 northbound ramps, moving down to Route 79, Bridge Street, the site driveways, and down to Clear Pond Road. And then we have our site driveway on Route 79. Again, this is a residential project, so our periods of study are 7 to 9 in the morning, 4 to 6 in the evening, so we capture those peak commuter periods. In terms of trip generation, we use the ITE trip generation manual. We would expect during the peak hours in the morning about 29 new vehicle trips, and during the weekday PM peak hour, 33 new vehicle trips. So again, not a very high generator of traffic with this type of use. As far as this traffic study results go, we provide the results for existing conditions, no build conditions, and build conditions. The capacity analysis essentially evaluates the level of service, which is based on the amount of average delay experienced by each vehicle at the intersections. The results of our study show that we're expecting minimal impacts during our peak hours. And with those types of things, with projects where we don't have a significant impact, we focus our mitigation more on trying to reduce the amount of vehicles that come to and from the site. So we focus on transportation demand management, geared towards trying to get people out of their cars and stay on site if they can. So some of those types of things could be making people aware of the alternate modes of transportation around the site, providing bike racks, and hosting annual mobility management educational events just so that people know what the options are instead of using a single occupancy vehicle. Again, since this is subject to NEPA review, MassDOT typically requires a traffic monitoring program 6 months after full occupancy of the site, and then an annual traffic counting program for 5 years after that to sort of check what our projections were against what's actually happening out there once it's built. And with that, I will hand it off to the architect.
Thank you. For the record, let's see if I can scroll this. I did it. For the record, Andrew Stebbins from TAT, associate at TAT. I'm going to touch upon how the application meets the architectural standards of the site plan review. The first 3 slides are of the cottages. As noted previously, we have 26 buildings, and they're a mix of duplexes and triplexes, which helps create some variety of building mass as one moves to the site. The buildings themselves are quite articulated. Basically, there are 3 unit types, and they come together in a variety of different ways to create different exterior designs, all related, but slightly different. So, and you see in the next slide, our plan is to vary the colors of the buildings to further create visual interest. Siding is, so this is a triplex. Siding proposed is a traditional shingle siding. We do have some accents at the unit entries here, vertical siding, some pilasters to further accentuate the entries.
Are the shingles wood or are they vinyl?
Cement fiber, so durable, pre-finished cement fiber that, you know, has a long life. And so you notice on the massing, we are varying the roof planes as we go around the site. We've got a variety, even in the same unit types, we can modulate and differentiate the different roof profiles on the ends of the buildings. But generally, they're very simple, traditional sort of sloped roofs with dormers. So these are asphalt shingle roofs. And then as far as features and details, I had mentioned a few of the trim details. We have trim around the windows, large windows with transoms here to let in natural light. And then here's another duplex cottage. This particular cottage is a handful of cottages that have the garage on the side. This is one of those and how that looks. So each unit does have a 1-car garage, but we tried to vary the how one would experience the buildings by switching them around. This is an image of the clubhouse from the street. Once again, very related to the other buildings, but obviously has a bit of a presence. In this case, we changed the windows to a darker window just to help differentiate it. Very light siding, incorporating the dormers and a cupola to help that could be lit and provide a marker for as one moves through the site. I think it's very well sited. As you come into the project, you'll be able to see the clubhouse in the distance, and this cupola also helps provide that hierarchy as a specialty building. Once again, porches, porch columns, horizontal siding, shingle siding again, just different color, asphalt shingle roofs, to be consistent with the rest of the development. I think that is it. And then
Pinch hitting. John O'Leary with Rhino Capital. As mentioned, our landscape architect was unable to join us this evening, so I'm going to do my best, which is certainly far from his. So a lot of these images will look very similar to what you saw in a previous application, and that is very intentional. We really want the landscape to flow throughout the master plan. As David had mentioned, approach and landscaping is really important to us. We want to make sure that it has a neighborhood feel, that there are tree lines along the entryway and spread throughout the development. Again, a lot of these will look very similar. One element I wanted to touch on that's specific to this use is the walking trail that will be open to the public. As Brittany had mentioned, we did hold 2 community engagement meetings specific to the walking trail. One of the products of that was a request for benches spread throughout. So that's something that we have since decided to incorporate or have incorporated throughout, spread periodically throughout the walking trail. Again, these all look very similar. A lot of meadow planting is planned. Again, we have a pretty substantial green area. I think this is a little bit over exaggerated to what might be, but the wastewater treatment plant and the leach fields were a key component for having this master plan come together. Those leach fields take up almost an acre of land between the 2 of them. We did not want those leach fields, which don't allow any development over the top of them, we did not want them to be an afterthought, and instead wanted to use them as a central area in an open green space that really ends up being very much the heart of the cottage development. At the far end, as you pull in to the property, you'll be greeted with this open green space. There'll be a clear line of sight through to the clubhouse with the cupola that Andrew was talking about as being sort of a very central element to the development. So this central green that's depicted here, although probably takes a little bit of liberty, is really what we're attempting to articulate with that central area, utilizing, as Brittany mentioned, sort of a otherwise, infrastructure focused element of the project. Bioretention basins, again, planting all of these bioretention basins to try to bring up the beauty that is a stormwater basin, as if you can say that. So we'll be mixing these throughout the development as well. And then lastly, a dog park. Again, getting back to the community engagement meeting, this was a common theme that we heard over and over and over again from folks. So we wanted to make sure that it was captured. The dog park will be fenced. It will have AstroTurf as a durable surface, and will likely include some benches. And our, like I said, our landscape architects certainly speak a little bit more on that. But wanted to touch on it, wanted to make sure it was included.
How many you said public parking spaces, how many?
I believe there are 4 parking spaces dedicated,
And then do you?
one of which is accessible.
Do you have a number of benches for the public walking trail?
I do not.
How many linear feet is the public walking trail?
We can circle back.
I asked this question yesterday. It's about 1,300 linear feet, approximately.
Great, thank you.
Project schedule, again, a little redundant here, but this project is being reviewed by MIPA, as is the entirety of the master plan. In addition to the local permitting that we are doing on this project with the planning board, this project will also be subject to a notice of intent with the Conservation Commission. So that actually was filed today, I believe, and we'll have coming hearings in the next few weeks. So in addition to all the state permitting that we've already talked about, we'll have 2 local filings as it relates to this development. And that is pretty much it. I just want to, in closing, there's a lot of information that was shared with you all and the public and those tuning in from home here this evening. I want to first off tip my cap to our development team that has done a phenomenal job in getting us to this point. There's still a lot of wood to chop going forward, but none of this would be possible, would not be possible without their hard work and dedication. A lot of hours were poured into what you have in front of you, and we're really happy to be back in front of this planning board to try to present a project that we believe is feasible, fits the needs and desires of the community, and we're looking forward to continuing to working with you all throughout the next several months. So with that, I'll close our portion.
And now, these slide presentations, are they available?
We can send them.
If you could send them to Kathy. Kathy, are you able to put them on the website, please? Thank you. Questions from the planning board?
Quick question. All the spaces in this community, are they self-maintained or are they going to be outsourced?
Yeah, there will be a management office that will be incorporated within the clubhouse. There will be, similar to condo buildings or neighborhoods, there will be an HOA.
Yep.
There'll be an HOA fee that will go along with maintenance and paying for that employee.
Yeah,
We'd like to see that.
I was more like who's mowing the grass, who's maintaining the dog park, who's maintaining.
That'll all be included as part of the HOA, so like plowing, landscaping.
Right, but I mean, it'll be an outside company, outside agency, or like not.
Yeah, it won't be, it'll be a third party.
Right, I haven't seen like maintenance buildings or anything like that, so it'd be like an outside landscaping company coming in and maintaining it. Okay.
That's correct.
It'd be similar to any other HOA, like the LeBaron or Pine Hills, where they.
That's exactly right.
The HOA goes out,
Guys, we're gonna be there.
requests
That goes there,
contracts
some
for
stuff.
lawn mowing and mulch removal and window cleaning and all that kind of stuff.
That's correct.
Another question for you regarding the interior design and all the aesthetics that go inside that. Is just one, I'm trying to say, like in the LeBaron, you get to pick out, this is the hardwood flooring I want these kind of lamps. Do you have that availability, or is it going to be, this is it?
At this point, we're not entirely sure how that would proceed. We do have a variety of iterations of the floor plan that we've conceptualized.
Yeah, like this is the Beacon style, this is the Bradley style, this is the whatever style.
That's our intent.
Yeah.
So, on the previous application, there was a review by the fire department. They haven't reviewed this one? There was no letter, we didn't see the
We
letter.
haven't received anything.
Okay, yeah.
Okay.
We would expect when we hold the meeting with fire department, we would like to talk about all of the applications at once, but we haven't heard that they have any comment.
Okay, yeah, no, the letter was in the other one, just didn't see it on this one, so wasn't sure.
I appreciate the offer right up front about keeping the 55 plus in perpetuity. That's great. We would like to see a copy of that HOA agreement as well to have council review. And that's available.
Anybody from the public want to come up?
Sure.
If you could come up and speak and state your name and address.
I came to the Long Pond presentation, met John there.
And your name, sir?
Jeff Dole, 6 Lamar Ave.
Thank you.
My concern was in traffic. I exit onto 79 Rhode Island Road. Didn't realize it's not a state road, it's owned by the town. There's very little walking. There's no space to walk, there's no sidewalk. And actually, when you're coming into this project from 105 up 79, it says road narrows. And if you ride the road, there's a topography to it. So when I come out West Vaughn Street, there's a hill, the cars are behind the hill coming towards me. The driving speed is 40 miles an hour. I attest to that. And to the right, where I have to come back, there's a curve in the road. So I got cars I can't see coming this way, cars coming over the hill, so it's always a run and gun when I get there. Sometimes I'm partway up and hit reverse and coming back. So I've kind of looked at the topography where the entrance and exit would be. Not a lot of space, but need to bring the trees back so you can see. I would suggest you put 3 lanes. One for somebody entering, one for somebody who's gonna turn left, and one that's gonna go right, because you'll end up with backup of cars trying to make that turn across. So that'd be my main concern. You answered his questions on HOA. I lived in a condominium. I know that you need a good organization running them, otherwise things go downhill very quickly. Thank you. Oh. I'm not sure what the whole plan is for tonight, but the southeast section there, is that being discussed tonight? No. Because what I heard is a 5-story building, and that would be the skyscraper in Lakeville. If it did come, it would have a rotating restaurant on the top floor. So.
Any other questions, comments? So we'd be looking at peer review for this as well. Same disciplines. Yeah,
Same schedule.
yeah, a month from now.
Same month also, yeah. I would like to make a real quick statement. I've worked on a lot of projects in the town of Lakeville. This is the most talented development team that I've ever worked with, and I think the board can see that also. I think this is going to be a great project for the town. We'll work with you all along the steps. We'd like to get it going as quickly as possible, because as we know, the sooner we get this done, the sooner we can clean up that site.
Right.
Thank you.
Absolutely, and I agree. I mean, working with them prior, it's amazing. It's amazing how well they listen, they take the input, and I do appreciate, and I know the residents appreciate that you're listening to these little items that are big in the long run, because the dog park, people have wanted it for a long time, and just the benches and the landscape, and I know you'll do a good job, and I appreciate that.
You're also going to extend the 21 days.
Extend the 21 days and continuance for a month.
And I would like to say that the parcel not being discussed is because it may not come before this board, but I would hope that you would consider, rather than a 40B, a 40R, in working with the town to bring that forward that way. There's a lot more benefits to the town than a 40B. If it's a friendly 40R, the town can get some money towards schools. So, that being said, do we have a motion to continue?
I'll make a motion to continue the 43 Main Street, the Fox Estates, upon peer review, till July 25th at 7 PM at Lakeville Police Station.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You guys want to hang out for the rest of our meeting? No?
But I already had something to eat.
Yeah.
Drink.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, well, here you go.
Yes. Hot.
Are you sure?
Oh, wait.
No.
Yes, that's it.
Oh, my
I'm
goodness.
never sure. No.
Sherry, we're better engineer than remote operator.
Well done.
Technology's great, it doesn't work. There you go.
Good job.
Thanks.
Well done. Must be weird. You should have heard it,
I did think of that. All right, so, we are now,
Yes.
agenda item number 5 was to approve some meeting minutes. I didn't see them in the packet. So, we'll skip that. Number 6, old business. We have Stowe Estates review and discussion of documentation related to inspection, possible vote. I did look through all of these letters that were submitted in regards to Stowe Estates. it does look like, so they have the test holes from ZCE, the TMLP electrical, and the Taunton Water. They've all submitted letters on behalf of the Stowe Estates saying that they're compliant with the requirements. Going through from our last agenda, the peer review items, so it does narrow it down. But it does still appear that they need to have the top course, the sidewalk, grading, stormwater management, and installation of loam and seating, still peer reviewed. So I would guess we should go back to environmental partners and ask them to revise their quote to include those items only. And so once we have that back, forward that to the applicant and have them get that done. If you agree, council.
I do. I was able to look at this. Kathy had sent me the stuff.
Okay.
So yes, you need, well, first of all, the top coat's not on, so you would need that to be verified.
Okay, so peer review for those items still.
Yep.
And then potentially at our next meeting, we could release 2 lots and hold 1 lot.
You could do that. You could, yes, you could also, you could release the lots with some kind of holdback if that were the case. But if they haven't been peer reviewed yet, you would need to have them looked at.
Okay.
So
particularly with particularly with there not being the final top coat.
Okay, so peer review.
Yep.
Just those items that are remaining. And then once we get the peer review back, we can determine to release 2 lots.
Correct.
At that point. Okay, so.
My name is Tony Schaus. The father-in-law, Nate Gagner, regarding these lots.
Yes.
And our covenant, when the board approved, we say we don't have to put a bond up because it's a private road.
So the rules and regulations do still stand?
Yes.
But we never get a top coat until they build the houses. They're gonna unload equipment in the street, they'll destroy the street. We'll always do that, do the binder, build the houses, and the end, we do the walk, we do the top coat, and clean up all the landscape. Normally that's been done.
There has to be some kind of guarantee that the top coat goes on. That's the issue.
Yeah.
Right.
So if you chose to do a covenant, unfortunately, that's the case. If there was a bond or some other kind of surety that would provide for security for the top coat.
What about release lot 1 and lot 3? Because we have those lots sold, and the customers, they want to start their own homes, and hold back lot 2.
What is the covenant now? It's for, I didn't have a copy of the covenant. All I had was the decision and and I looked at your rules and regulations. And I got all the documents of the, what's been done and evidence that it's been done. The letter from ZCE, things like that. But the infrastructure has not been complete.
Right.
So that's the bottom line. Bottom line, on a subdivision, the infrastructure, the surety under 81U, under 41 section 81U, is to guarantee the infrastructure be complete. So the problem with releasing lots when the infrastructure is not complete is that developer could walk away, you're left holding.
Yes, we do it all the time. I did Bittersweet, that's what we did. We do the first coat, build most of the houses, and go back to the walk, and do the top coat. Yeah, but if we do a finished product.
So no matter what, you would need a price from your peer review as to what the cost would be to finish the infrastructure.
I figured around 25,000, say a whole back lot 2.
So you would need a price
So
from
we
your.
would need that from our peer review,
Yeah.
not from you.
But we need those lots released.
Well, so we're gonna get the peer review quote, and if you can move forward with that peer review to have that completed, and then at our next meeting, we can discuss releasing 2 of the lots and holding 1 until the completion.
I know cost me $19,000 to do the binder. He knows it ain't even gonna cost $19,000 to top, because it's less asphalt. It's 1.5 inches, and the binder was 2 inches. In the sidewalk, you know, I figured around $6,000 to do the sidewalk. That's what I was saying, around $25,000. If you could, $30,000, when the lot's worth $200, you know, you have
Well,
enough.
it still needs to be done according to the rules and regulations. And you were allowed quite a few waivers in this subdivision, and you were able to build these without doing peer review on stormwater as well. So you've had quite a few concessions as it is. So I think this is very generous, especially since you didn't have to pay for the full peer review already that was quoted. And we're just looking for the remainder to be done properly.
So you need a letter from the contractor, like D.L. Edwards?
No, we need peer review to be done for the remaining items. The top coat, the sidewalks, et cetera. The grading, stormwater, installation of loam.
Basin. But we're gonna see the basin now, because nothing will grow this time of the year. You know, the swale's all done, the basin is done, you know, we're gonna wait till the end of August or September to seed it. You know, everybody knows, you throw seed or hydro seed down now, this time of the year, you're only gonna have a few weeks.
You need your peer review to look at, if the basin is part of the stormwater, you need your peer reviewer to look at it.
Yeah, so,
Unfortunately.
yeah, we're gonna have to move forward with the peer review for the remaining items. We'll put it back on our agenda for, should it be a month or 2 weeks?
I would do 2 weeks just
2 weeks.
in case they can get it.
Yeah.
Okay.
13.
The 11th.
No,
The 11th.
11, sorry, I was in the wrong month.
The 11th?
Okay, so we can continue it till July 11th, have the peer, if we have the peer review back, we can review it at that time and make a determination about releasing lots at that point. So
Yes, but it's a Saturday.
Someone would like to make a
Yeah.
motion to continue?
Make a motion to continue Stowe Estates upon peer review until July 11th at the Lakeville Police Department, 7 PM.
Second.
I have a motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll be honest with you, I'm a little bit disappointed, you know, with this.
But the regulations are the regulations, so.
I understand.
And like the chairwoman said, I
You know,
mean,
but, you know, before even go back, before I put the first load of gravel there, we've been asking for inspections. Who's gonna inspect? We went to the highway department. We went everywhere. Nobody knew who was gonna inspect it. You know, try to be pretty fair.
Well, it's gonna get done, but
I know it's gonna get done, but the customers, we have 2 lots sold, they wanna start their homes.
all right.
Okay.
Well,
Thank you.
on to
Well, the 15,
The 11th.
the 11th.
11th, yes.
thank you.
So it
Thank you.
is the consulting firm and planning board budget discussion under old business. So we didn't have a full board last meeting. I had sent around what I had gotten from the Platinum Partners, which is a consulting firm. I also sent around what I found today from previous quote from Environmental Partners. You can see, you kind of gauge where they're at. The Environmental Partners contract was looking at $30,000 for a year, and then the Platinum Partners was a wide range, which was $2,000 to $5,000 per month, very flexible depending on what the need is, which comes in between 24 to 60,000 per year. Knowing that, you know, we do need, yes, thank you, Amy, so much.
Thank you.
I'm trying to sneak out.
Yeah, that's right.
Everybody out there first.
We'll see you later.
I'll see you in a month.
Yeah, sounds good. Thank you so much. Like the shine in the bushes. Yeah.
So, knowing that we have a need for, you know, consultant services, I'd like to make a recommendation to the select board. We could use Platinum Partners. We could also, so they have a planner at 200 per hour and an attorney at 350 per hour. And then Environmental Partners, it was geared on the different disciplines, what their hourly rate is. So I think it kind of fits what we were looking for, having two options. We could use the Platinum Partners, and then for something that doesn't require that legal aspect potentially.
And with Environmental Partners, if we use them, does that have any conflict of interest for them to be our peer reviewer for projects if they're?
So they would just be working on behalf of the town still.
What is the conflict of interest?
Yeah.
No, I'm just curious. I don't know if they're working for us and then also peer of the third party. I guess they're still doing the same.
Oh, I see what you're saying, yeah.
Shouldn't be.
Because when it's a peer review, the applicant's paying.
Yeah, that's true, I guess, yeah.
Did you have a chance to reach out to any of the towns?
Yes, I did.
Yeah.
And the one has a new town planner
Okay.
that started in the spring, so he hadn't worked with them.
Oh.
But he went back and looked through his records, and he found no record of them ever providing services.
Okay.
Another one, all I had was an email address, so I wrote them an email, told them what I wanted. I have not heard back from them. I actually wrote a second email.
So it was Hanson and Hanover
And Halifax.
Halifax. All the H's.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Yeah, so, little towns,
Yeah.
overworked staff, so I'm still on it, yeah.
Okay. All right. Do we want to hold off on a recommendation? Do we want to move forward with a recommendation?
I think we could, I think we can move forward, you know, we've got two that we could choose
Right.
from.
Interchangeably.
Yeah.
And when were you proposing to bring this up to the board? Select board?
Yeah.
Soon?
Sending a recommendation
Okay, yeah,
as soon as,
'cause
you know,
that'd
we're
be great.
decided.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
I mean, from what I did find out about Platinum Partners reading stuff, I mean, they look like they could certainly serve in a number of ways.
And that's what Barbara Minkowski, you know, I do value her opinion as well, and
Yeah.
she's familiar with them, so I
Absolutely.
think that's good as well. So, if we want to make a
Yeah.
recommendation to the select
Yeah,
board
I wrote-
for these
yeah.
two. Do we also, I know the other part of it was, we talked about a part-time coordinator position, but that was a conflict. So I do still see a benefit of having an in-house position to fill certain needs. I know Kathy was out, she's got a lot of vacation time to take, even just somebody that can fill in at that point too. I think we should still consider a part-time, even if it's like a combined position.
Yeah, because you were talking about them serving other boards too.
Well, so, you know, if there's a way of combining it with another role in town that, you know, could perhaps part of that recommendation is to recommend consideration for a combined role that could fill a need
This is basically
with planning
an
board as well.
administration role, right? That this is?
I mean, I still like the idea of a coordinator, /something
Yeah.
role.
Oh, yeah, yeah. But
Um,
what we were just talking about just now, I thought that would be, is that more of an administration role? Because if Kathy's out, I mean,
well, she's clerical,
yeah.
so,
But if you're saying, this particular, help me understand exactly what this particular role would be, a position that is part-time.
so, I mean, for the planning board,
Yeah.
would be part of it. You know, if it's a combined role, they would have another role, you know, in some other capacity.
Good.
So,
I mean, the challenge is, I mean, we're getting a lot of projects. I mean, obviously,
right, it's
you
just
know,
the time of year.
but
Yeah.
if anything, it's going to be increasing and increasing. You know, and for Kathy too, I mean, you've got a lot on your plate for both of the boards.
Yeah.
So having some help and assistance, I think would be a great benefit too.
And plus,
yeah.
with all the 40B, somebody should be, like, I want to see that be somebody's
Yeah.
baby. Somebody should be, you know, from when it comes to the select board, from when it goes to ZBA, from when it has to be tracked at the state level, I think that should be, you know, that to me is a coordination.
Yeah.
But potentially,
And if the hospital becomes a 40R, then we need it.
right,
Yeah.
but still, I mean, I'm talking about tracking those units as well.
Yeah,
So,
well, yeah.
because there's timeframes when all of these things are counted.
Right.
So I do see a benefit to having an in-house position as well. Perhaps if we can't get a part-time coordinator, maybe we could at least get a combined position that includes those specific roles that we're looking to fill.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, I don't know if you want to work on drafting something again, Dan? Maybe.
Yeah, I mean, I can
Maybe
take a stab
tweaking
at
what
it.
you
Yeah.
had and
Yeah.
maybe making it a little more specific, and if you're
Yeah.
still up for it. And,
So we'll
and
continue.
maybe send it to me, and then, so we're not like
Yeah.
all
Yeah.
applying, and then
Yeah, make sure it's nailed down. Yep.
and then we'll send it off
Yeah.
to the select board. And, you know, let everybody
Yeah.
view it.
Can weigh in and so forth.
All right, so, other than that, our next meeting will be July 11th, 2024 at the Lakeville Police Station. Any other business?
Nope.
Do I have a motion to adjourn?
We're done.
Second.
Motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.